Red Hat Network Satellites, SUSE Manager, Signa OMD, and Enterprise Linux, SUSE, and VMware vSphere. And let's have a look at that agenda. First of all, we'll talk about the motivation of a system management tool, and later we'll have a look at administration and installation. And the last part of my talk is about tips and tricks, how you can optimize the process of central system management. Okay. I'm sure that most administrators will agree with me when I say that normally less administrators are managing many systems. And we all know these sentences like, we need 10 servers as soon as possible. We need this till the end of this week, so tomorrow. And can you make those adjustments quickly? I'm having a deal with the management in 10 minutes. And as a result, standards and documentation are often neglected. So, the central system management is essential, but it's hard to find which tool to use because there are many tools that are possible, and the variety is very big. For example, there's Puppet, there's Jet, there's Ansible, and there's CF Engine, and those are mostly configuration management utilities, but they are only offering some of the features that the management suites, Spacewalk, Red Hat Satellite, and SUSE Manager can offer. And those tools are combining software configuration and content management, which is also very interesting. But there's also a big Spacewalk variety. To have a look at the history, in 2002, Red Hat released the first version of Red Hat Network Satellite. And later in 2008, they released the source code public as Spacewalk. And since then, Spacewalk is the upstream project for Red Hat Satellite Server and SUSE Manager. And SUSE Manager and Red Hat Satellite are enterprise products, and you need a service contract to use them. And Spacewalk is a free version you can use. And often features are tested in Spacewalk, and when they are stable enough, they are ported to the enterprise products. Let's have a look how those tools look like. In this screenshot, I hope everybody can see. You can see Spacewalk, that's version 2.2. And to show that the products are very similar to each other, here's a screenshot of Red Hat Satellite, which is nearly the same. And here's a screenshot of SUSE Manager. In German we say dasselbe in grün, which is very funny because green is the color of the SUSE company, and it's nearly the same overview, just in green. Okay. Let's have a look at some common features that every tool has. All of those tools are multi-client capability, so it's possible to represent multiple organizations, including limitations. So, for example, you can create sub-companies and can assign limitations to the companies. And all tools are capable of configuration management, and you can create multi-level deployment of configuration files. I will give you some examples later. And another feature is that the tools are providing software and update management. So we have a central management and deployment of software packages. And also a great feature is content provisioning and caching, which means that your registered client systems don't need to download the patches once again. So all the patches are stored on the server, and the clients are getting the packages from the server, and they don't need to download it from the internet connection. Okay. There are some other features like system provisioning. You can deploy your systems based on the standards you define. And we can also do security and license auditing. So you can define standards for security, and you can make sure that all your systems are following these standards. And you can also check whether your licenses are exhausted. And another thing that's interesting is that you can enable crash reporting, so that in case of applications that are crashing, you can store these crash reports on a satellite or spacewalk. So you don't need to have a look at the particular systems and check the outputs of the log files. You can directly store it in the system. And there's also a feature I really don't recommend. That's monitoring. So spacewalk comes with the monitoring, but that's really basic. And I'm sure that you really would prefer Nagios or Isinga or whatever. So don't use this. Just that you know there is a monitoring function that's not really good. Okay, let's have a look at the differences between the products. Spacewalk is the technical playground of Red Hat for new functions, as I already said. And because of this, new releases are released every 2.5 months. So the architectures that are supported for Spacewalk are i386 and the 64-bit version. And you can manage enterprise Linux, including CentOS, Scientific Linux, and also Oracle Linux. You can also manage Debian, but there's only a limited support. But I don't know in detail which functions are not supported. But there's a list in the Spacewalk wiki you can look up there. And of course, you can also manage OpenSUSE and Fedora. The database is the same for all products. You can use PostgreSQL or an Oracle database if you really want to. There is a SUSE Manager appliance, and this appliance comes with a PostgreSQL database. And that's also in the manual of Spacewalk. It's recommended to use the PostgreSQL database because it works easier and without any issues. And if you're using an Oracle database, there are some pitfalls, and you really have to look carefully what you're doing. There are also some exclusive functions, and I'd like to begin with Spacewalk. Spacewalk has a new user interface which has been developed by SUSE. It's a jQuery user interface, and it looks pretty nice. And you can also use it on your smartphone or tablet. So you don't need a full browser to manage your systems. You can do this with your smartphone. And Spacewalk also has the support for Solaris Unix. Is anybody of you using Solaris or other Unix derivatives? Okay. So if you have some systems and you really want to manage them, you can do this with Spacewalk. And there's also a new function which is included in the most recent Spacewalk version, that's power management. And that's just a new function for Cobbler. I will explain you later what Cobbler is used for. But in this case, it's used to enable easier kickstarting. So if you want to kickstart a system and the system is powered off, it will be powered on before it's kickstarted. Otherwise, it won't move. CentOS is the enterprise product of Red Hat, as I said, and it's released every 9 to 12 months. And of course, it's also supported to use those old architectures, but you also can use the, I think it's IBM set series. Yeah. You can also manage those IBM set series architecture. And it's only supported to manage Red Hat Enterprise Linux. You can also manage CentOS, Fedora, or the other distros that I mentioned here, but that's not supported. So if you open an account because you're having issues with this, they won't help you. But as satellite is based on Spacewalk, it will work. And the database is exactly the same. Satellite also comes with the Solaris support. And Satellite is the only system that is capable of RHN connection. So that means if you really want to manage your Red Hat Enterprise Linux systems, you should go for Satellite. This is the supported tool, and you are only able to get patches using that tool. And there's also SUSE Manager. Unfortunately, I don't know how often SUSE Manager releases are released. I asked the guys, but they didn't answer. With SUSE Manager, you can manage classical 32 and 64-bit Intel machines, but you can also manage Itanium systems. Is anybody of you using Itanium systems? Really? Okay. Yeah, but not really. Okay, yeah. because SLES is the only active Linux distribution that still supports Itanium, and that's why it's supported here to manage this also. And if you are having power machines by IBM, you can also manage them. As SLES is also running on those machines. You can support, you can manage SUSE Linux enterprise server systems, and you can also manage Red Hat enterprise Linux servers. But be careful, this is not supported by Red Hat. So if you want to manage your Red Hat systems with SUSE Manager, your Red Hat support is omitted. There's a product called SUSE Expanded Support. That's a product you can buy, and SUSE is providing you patches for Red. So they are getting the source code from the Red servers, they are recompiling it and uploading it. That's all. But many companies choose this because this is a little bit cheaper than buying the support directly from Red Hat. And if you're having both SUSE and Red Hat in your company, that might be a solution for you. But you really should have a deeper look at it. Okay. Let's have a look at the architecture. Most of the spacewalk intelligence runs in a Tomcat server. And third-party applications, for example, scripts or tools that you can create, I will give you some examples later, connect to this server using a front-end XML RPC API. And on the other side, we have the normal web browser you are using for maintaining your system landscape that connects to Spacewalk using the web interface. And there's also an Apache web server which have Python and Perl handlers. And your registered systems, which are downloading patches, they are connecting using the backend XML RPC API to a Apache server. And the most of the data is stored in a database. And there's also an application component which is called Taskomatic. And that's something like a cron daemon which runs in the background and is doing some spacewalk actions like checking whether configuration files are up to date, downloading patches, and so on. But there are also some additional components that are not part of the graphic I just showed you. And for example, there is OSAD, which stands for Open Source Architecture Daemon, and that's a service for maintaining systems in real time. So for example, you are planning to install patches on server 1. Then this action is started on the client using the Jabber protocol. So there's a client running on the managed system, and that client is informed that there is an action he should execute, and then he will execute the command. And to make sure that this works, you need to open the network port TCP 5222 on the client, otherwise that real-time maintenance won't work. And there's also a TFTP server, which is a minimal FTP server, and this is required for the clients to boot from network. And there's also PopID, which is an installation service that is able to configure TFTP and DHCP and DNS automatically. So you can simply create a host that you want to kickstart, and he will automatically configure DNS, DHCP, and TFTP for you. And all you need to do is reboot the system, and it will boot from network. And there's also an interesting component called Spacewalk Proxy, and that's really, really recommended if you are maintaining systems in different locations that are separated by a wide area network. And the Spacewalk Proxy is caching the software packages locally, so that the clients from other networks don't need to access the files in your network. So it's reducing load and traffic for you. Okay, let's talk about news. Spacewalk 2.2 was just released a couple of days ago, and the new version now supports Enterprise Linux 7 clients. But it's not possible to run Spacewalk 2.2 on a CentOS 7 or RHEL 7 system at the moment because of broken dependencies. So make sure that you are using CentOS 6 for this at the moment. And another new function is that there's now a action chains. And that function enables grouping interdependent actions. I will give you an example later, but if you want to have a look at the SUSE web page, they made a very interesting screencast about that. And it also shows how action chaining can help you with your daily business. And the Perl, Python, and Ruby API was updated to support new calls. And if you're using Solaris, this might be interesting for you that the Solaris support is now deprecated and may be dropped in one of the further releases. So if you're still using Solaris and you're mentioning your system with Spacewalk, you should think about migration now. Okay, let's talk about action chaining. I will give you an example. Let's say you want to install patches on a system which has user mounted as read-only. I know that sounds strange, but parallel administrators are really doing this. Then the direct installation of the patches will fail because USR is mounted as read-only. And the solution is, before you install the patches using Spacewalk, you need to remount the file system, that is read-write. Then you install the patches, and afterwards you are doing another remote command to mount it as read-only. But that's not a good solution because you have to remember that you will now install patches and you need to execute the commanding. And action chaining is great here because it defines dependencies. So to do the same patch using action chaining, you only need to describe 3 scripts. And the first does the remount for USR as read-write. Then the patches are installed, and afterwards the condition is remounted as read-only. And the actions are interdependent, which means if script 1 was executed successfully, but step 2 crashed, that means that step 3 won't be executed because step 2 crashed. Yeah. And the actions are executed sequentially. And here's an example of what it looks like in the web user interface. Here's one action, and the action consists of 3 sub-actions. Yeah. Okay.
Do you have rollbacks for that?
What?
Rollback support. Like if action.
As far as I know, there is no rollback function. You only see which of the scripts has failed, and you need to have a look why it failed. Okay, let's talk about installation of Spacewalk. The Spacewalk requires at least 2 gigabytes of memory. Using 4 gigabytes is recommended. And as I said, you need enterprise Linux 5 or 6. RHEL or 7 or 7 is not supported at the moment. And there's a Spacewalk YAML repository you need to include with your system. And if you're using Red Hat Enterprise Linux, you also need the optional channel. And if you are running CentOS Scientific Linux or Oracle Linux, you need the J package and the Able repository. I think everybody knows Able. Yeah. It's just a repository of additional packages. And J package is a repository for some additional Java libraries and tools. And if you are installing Spacewalk on Fedora 20, you need to install those 2 tools, and you need to downgrade your RPM libraries because they are too new for Spacewalk. Yeah, so if you want to know details, here's the exact version. And the FQDN and the short name needs to be available because Spacewalk uses FQDNs. And you also need to open some ports in the firewall. So for example, for the web interface, you need TCP/80 and 443, which is common. And if you want to push actions on client systems, you need to open this or TCP 522. And if you want to kickstart the systems, you also need to open UDP 69. installation. Here's an example of a system for a spacewalk system which manages 10 CentOS 6 systems. And CentOS 6 consists of 2 repositories, base for the base system and updates for the update packages. So that means for the 10 systems you need 3 gigabytes. And for repository CentOS base you need 140 gigabytes. For the updates you need 248 gigabytes. So in summary you need about 2 gigabytes of memory, but it's basically a good idea to have some more space. That's why it's recommended to have at least 6 gigabytes of storage capacity. And the installation is pretty simple. There are only some packages you need to install. If you're using PostgreSQL database, you only need to install Spacewalk Setup, and Spacewalk Setup PostgreSQL. If you're using Oracle, there are some additional steps to make, and if you really want to do this on the Spacewalk wiki, there's an interesting documentation about this. And if you're using the Express edition, which is the free version of the Oracle database for development purposes, don't use the XE client. It's definitely not working. Use the Oracle XE client. But you will find more details on this website if you're looking forward to do this. After the packages are installed, the initial configuration is done with one single command, which is called Spacewalk Setup. And it started with the parameter disconnected, because this is necessary for the first configuration. And that's the kind of wizard that asks you some initial parameters like the email address of the administrator. As a central authority is created, you also need to enter an initial password. You need to enter the name of the company, where it's based, and so on and so on. And during this wizard, Apache is configured for SSL. And after the wizard, it's a good idea to make sure that the Spacewalk service is started every time the system is booted, and you need to start the service. And after this is done, you can log in the web interface, and we need to disable the disconnected flag we set during the first initial configuration. And after that, it's a good idea to customize the system to match your company structure. So for example, if you are using Solaris, you can enable the Solaris support, and you can create additional user accounts for your team colleagues, and you can create additional organizations, for example, subsidiary companies. And yeah, that's the initial configuration. Let's talk about system maintenance. First, I want to talk about channels, child channels, and software repositories. In Spacewalk, every distribution, for example, RHEL 6 or CentOS 6, is mapped to one or more software channels. And all channels are unique. They are named using a label. And it's also possible to create a human-readable name. And each channel consists of one or multiple child channels. And those channels are synchronized using a repository. So for example, the network mirror, for example, mirror.centos.org, where you can find all the CentOS packages. And the access to the particular channels can be limited per system. So here is an example of my test system. I have a channel for CentOS 5. And here is a channel for CentOS 6. And there are many child channels. So for example, there's CentOS 6 extras, updates, April, and so on. So these are all child channels, and this is the major channel. So these channels are belonging to the CentOS 6 base channel. And the repository content is synchronized using a tool called Spacewalk Sync. And it's a good idea to implement this tool as a cron job, so that your server is still running the most recent patches every night, and you don't have to do this manually. And this is quite simple. Here's an example for downloading our CentOS 6 packages. So it's Spacewalk Sync. And the channel name is assigned here. So that's the channel label I was talking about 2 slides ago. And afterwards, you are defining the URL of the network mirror. I'm using the main mirror of CentOS here. And your channel of this system is CentOS 6 base, and it's allowed to use the extras, updates, enable and OB child channel, but it's not allowed to use the repo wash channel. So you can separate the software to the systems. Okay, what kind of maintenance task is space for chemical to run on the system? For example, you can install, update or remove software packages, you can apply errata, and you can also execute remote shell commands, restart the system, update configuration files, and much more. Another great feature I want to show is System Set Manager, which means that you can group similar systems. For example, you can group every web server, you can group every database server. And all systems that are grouped can be managed like a single host. So for example, if you have 20 web servers and you want to install all patches, you don't need to select every single system and install the patches. You can just use the web servers group and install the whole set of patches on the group. So this can really reduce time when you have a big system landscape. And in my opinion, it's a very good idea to create groups per application in priority. So for example, I'm using groups for the test systems, for the development systems, and for the production systems. So for example, the test systems can be patched whenever I feel like it, so I use the group and patch the systems. But I won't do the same for the production systems. That's why I really recommend to create groups per system application in priority. Let's talk about configuration management. Spacewalk is capable of storing configuration files in one or more configuration channels. And it's also interesting that it's also supported to central managed symbolic links and binary files. And those configuration channels can be ordered hierarchically. So, for example, you can create multiple configuration channels based on network or your application. So, for example, if you have database systems and you have special settings for those database systems, you can create configuration channels for it. And one configuration file is part of one or two channels. And if one file exists in two channels, then the first occurrence is selected. So, for example, if etc host is in the configuration channels generic and the configuration channel for database, and database is the most important channel for the system, we'll use the configuration file from the database channel. And it's really easy to create new configuration. You can simply do this with the web user interface. And the web user interface offers an integrated ASCII editor, and it's also possible to use some of the system profile values, for example, the host name, the IP address, the system name, using macros. And if you want to know more about macros, I would recommend to have a look at the Red Hat setup documentation, because there are many things which would just be too much time if I'm explaining all the possible macros. And if you're updating your configuration files, every update is stored as a new revision, and it also gets MD5 checksum, so that you can check whether the configuration files are up to date on the systems. And which is also very important, that configuration files aren't deployed automatically if you update them. So for example, if you deployed version 1 of a configuration file to all your systems and you're doing an update, you have to make sure that you update the files in the systems. So this is not done automatically, which is better in my opinion. Okay, let's have a look at an example. If you want to create a new configuration file, you are specifying the file name, the file path, the owner, so that you would set by ch1 and cho and the file mode. You can also set the SE Linux context if you're using it. Is anybody of you using SE Linux in enforcing mode? Really good. Because most people are just disabling SE Linux and they don't want to spend time on fixing the issues SE Linux throws. And you can also set the context there. And if you're using macros, you can also set a custom delimiter. And of course, you need to specify the configuration file content. Yeah. But this can also be uploaded. So if you are having the configuration file on your hard drive, you don't need to copy and paste the content, you can also upload the file to the server. And here's an example of configuration channel priorities. So here's a system which is registered to two configuration channels. So for example, there's a channel called Stankowic, which includes configuration files for the local network, so not the MSET, the local network, and there's a generic configuration channel which includes configurations for all the systems. And if one file is in both channels, you can choose the version from the LAN channel. Yeah, and you can simply change the priority and to make sure that the system is using the adequate configuration files. Okay, here's an example of deploying a new configuration file. So a central configuration file was deployed on 4 systems. You can see here that the 4 systems are having the revision 1, and now a revision 2 was created. And unfortunately, the screenshot is in German, but the text above says that revision 2 has been stored, and it's possible to roll out a new version to those systems. And you only need to select the systems you want to update, and click on schedule, and after that the updated configuration file is deployed to the systems. Okay, let's have a look at Errata for CentOS. Red customers are getting Errata automatically by Red Hat Answer. Does anybody of you know what an Erratum or Errata is? It's kind of information that tells you what security fixes or bug fixes are patched with an update. So, for example, if there was a security issue, there's normally a CVE entry for it, and the Errata just tells you that the package HBBD now fixes this issue. And Red Hat customers are receiving this Errata automatically by the Red Hat network. But for CentOS, this is only displayed as a regular update. But it's quite interesting what kind of update you need to install. Is it a security fix? Is it a feature enhancement? Whatever. And this information can be provided by CEFS, which stands for CentOS Errata for Spacewalk. And that's a very nice service because the server of CEFS is doing a permanent analysis of mailing lists at Red Hat CentOS, and this service provides Errata information as XML. And you can simply import this Errata, and you can also include the Red Hat security announcements. So if you are importing the Errata and the security announcements, you know exactly what kind of patches you have available to your systems. For example, security fixes for NFS and bug fixes for the Apache web server. And that's a really, really great service. I really like it. And it's quite easy to import those Errata. The only thing you need to do is you need to run a Perl script, which is available at the CEFS website. And first you need to download the most current Errata, which is stored as an XML file. And after you download the XML file, you just need to import the Errata, and while specifying the Spacewalk server, which is, if you do this on the same host localhost, the name of the XML file, and you write down which channels to include. So, for example, you can also import the Errata for CentOS, but not for Oracle Linux, for example. Yeah? So you only need to specify the channels, and you need to specify the published keywords, because this will publish the Errata, and you will see directly after you log into the system which security fixes and bug fixes are available to your systems. Let's have a look at how Kickstart works. Enterprise Linux needs a Kickstart distribution and profile to start. And Kickstart distribution consists of minimal boot environments. And that's That's a set of files you can find on your DVD or on network mirrors. And the Kickstart profile afterwards starts the distribution and the installation of your system. The disadvantage about this is that you need to do some things manually. You need to download the files you need for Kickstart. So, for example, you need to download from a network mirror, or you need to copy it from your DVD. And you need to copy the files to the folder, create a distribution for that, and that takes time. Yeah. And I developed a tool called MKELFS, which can help you here. This is a Python tool which is downloading the needed files from the internet, from a network mirror. It can also create Kickstart distributions automatically for you. And currently, CentOS, Scientific Linux, and Fibra Linux is supported. And if you want to have a look at it, you can download the script on GitHub. But I will also show you some examples. That comment here, the first one, download CentOS 6.5, 64-bit, and creates a Kickstart distribution. So you only need to enter this comment, and MKELFS is doing all the work for you. And the second comment just downloads the Kickstart files for Scientific Linux 6.2, 32-bit, and pre-existing files are overwritten, and the output is omitted. Another interesting thing that's often forgotten is the database cleanup. The problem is that all tasks that are executed using spacewalk are stored as actions. So also automatically executed actions like checking configuration file compliance is an action. And it's often not needed to have a look afterwards at the actions and have a look at what has been done. And as a result, the database is often full of unneeded information. So, for example, that's one of my spacewalk systems that I was using for, I think, half a year. And those were all the actions I have executed. And I really don't remember the information what has been done. And this can result in a slow application performance because the database is full of information that are not needed. And unfortunately, reading these actions is quite time consuming because the table which shows all the actions can only show up to, I think, 200 actions. And if you're having nearly 240,000 actions, this will need a lot of clicking work for you. And I also created a Python script for this called ARSA, which stands for Archiving Standard or Spacewalk Actions. And that's a tool that is capable of archiving and deleting actions. And I really recommend to use this as a cron job. And you can also download this script online on GitHub. And here are some examples. The first comment just lists all the completed actions that you would like to archive. So it's a kind of dry run. And minus RF parameter just archives completed and failed actions and deletes all archived actions afterwards, so that your action list is hopefully empty. Yeah. And I use this as a cron job once per week because I really don't need to know what patch I installed 12 months ago. And so I can make sure that the database is not full of unneeded information. Okay, let's talk about patch reporting. Patch reporting is very interesting. It's often requested by the management of IT companies. And depending on the certification of your company, this even might be essential. So for example, if your company is ISO 27001 certified, is this the case for anybody of you? Yeah? So you know this. It's really painful to do the documentation for this certification standard because the TÜV wants to see what patches has been installed on which system, and why and when, and if the system was checked before the installation and checked after the installation, and that's really, really a pain because it's so time consuming, and if you're having a big system landscape, this can take multiple days. Yeah? And I just thought there must be a way to automate this. And that's why I developed another satellite patch reporting. And that's a toolkit which creates detailed patch reports per host. And those reports are created using text or LaTeX to a PDF. And the reports are listing patch relevant and also general system information. I will give you some examples what this means in detail. And you can also download the script on GitHub. Here's an example of a patch report we are using for our system maintenance in the company I'm working for. So first you see the IP address of the system, and of course the date when you have done the maintenance. And you also see a responsible for the system. So in our company, every server has at least one responsible, one guy who is responsible for the server and the functions he's providing. That is mentioned here. And we are also including some meta information in the patch report. So for example, is it a standalone system or is it a cluster system? That's also something TÜV wants to see. And we also define whether we are updating the operating system or only the application which is running on the system. And that's marked here. And before I was developing this tool, we had to do this manually, which was really a pain because it took multiple hours for me after every patch progress. And there's also a checklist which is defined in ISO 27001. They want to see whether the hardware was checked after the system was patched. If you created a snapshot of the virtual machine, if you disabled the monitoring before you rebooted the server, if you rebooted the server, if you check whether the application is up and running, the backup service, and so on and so on. And this needs to be done manually before, and this is now done automatically, and information are also gathered automatically. So for example, if there's a system in your spacewalk environment which is a virtual machine, the report automatically sets a checkbox. So for example, if it's a physical machine, then you would set no flag to that a snapshot has been created, because you can create a snapshot of a physical machine. It's impossible. Yeah. So this can help you in saving time. And there's also a list of installed patches, and he will list all the patches. He will set the type, so is this a bug fix, a security fix, or just a feature enhancement? He will give you the name, the date once the patch was released, and also a name, and, which is very interesting, a reboot was required. So you really don't need to reboot a Linux system after every patch, only if you're updating some core packages for the kernel. And for example, if a system doesn't need to be rebooted after installation of packages, then he will automatically check no if the system was rebooted, because it was not necessary. So after your system maintenance, you only need to fill in the fields subnet was not able to detect automatically.
So why is the tasks CFR realized line not filled out? Did you do anything, or
Which one?
the tasks CFR realized line of system reboot?
Here.
So why is there no check mark set? For example.
This is not set because we need to define in our team whether this should be set automatically. Because I wanted to set this, but my manager said no. It's a good idea that the administrator needs to check that he updated the application and that we check it. And so that's why my manager also wants that the administrator needs to check manually that he really did what is mentioned in the report. Okay, but how is this working in detail? If you want to use this tool, you only need to follow this procedure, which is quite easy. First of all, before you begin your system maintenance, you're creating a snapshot of relevant errata and patch information. That's a script which has a look at every system and lists what patches with which type and so on is available to which system. And after that snapshot was created, that's just a simple CSV report which is created. You are patching your system and reboot, creating snapshots, whatever you need to do. And after patch your systems, you're creating another snapshot. So you're executing the same command once again. And after that, you are having two CSV reports before and after your maintenance. And then you need to execute the build utility. And that tool is creating a delta between the before and the after state. So it knows which patches have been installed in which system. And it creates afterwards a PDF report per system. And finally, you just need to sign the document and be happy that you have saved a lot of time. And the additional data information I was talking about is captured per system using custom information keys. That's some kind of variable you can set per system. And there are some variables that are used by my script. For example, system owner, system cluster for that says that the system is a cluster system, and so on. If you want to get in touch with the details, you can find on the GitHub page. There's a long documentation I just written. Okay, the patch reports can also be customized. So for example, you can put your company's logo there, or you can change the page orientation if you prefer landscape instead of portrait, and you can also select multiple information or exclude them. And this report I just showed you is just a simple patch template. So if you have some corporate identity patch template you want to use, you only need to change the patch document from that. Okay. If you want to get in touch with further information and details, here are some interesting web links that might help you. For example, I really recommend the CentOS wiki. And if you are maintaining CentOS systems, you also should have a look at CEFS, which is providing the data for spacewalk. And if you want to try the tools I presented, you can have a look at my GitHub profile. All the tools are offered there. And if you are using Solaris and want to manage the systems with spacewalk or satellite, there's a guest post by me in the official Red Hat blog, and I'm explaining in a very detailed level how this works if you want to do this. Okay, so I'd like to thank you for your attention, and if there are some questions, I'd love to answer them now. And if you want to stay in touch with me, you can add me on Twitter, and if you are interested in spacewalk or satellites, you can check out my blog. I'm often writing articles about that. Any questions? No? Okay. Thanks.
For us, that relates to pilot material.
Yeah.
Because I know there are rumors that Catello and also Foreman and Pilot will become part of the new space world, or the successor of space world.
Yeah, so there's the enterprise project called Red Hat Satellite 5.6, which is based on the spacewalk version. And there will also be the Red Hat Satellite 6. Whatever version, which will be the new spacewalk, which does everything in a more cooler way. And this is based on the Catello framework. And that's really a big architecture change, because it's not a simple update, it's a complete new architecture. And to be honest, I had no detailed look at it, because it's still in, I think, alpha software state.
Public beta is released a month ago or something like that.
Okay, and so there are also some components. So what we could already use is, for example, pipe to mirror the Red Hat network. That's something more as a standard, which is already working for us.
I recently was part of the Red Hat screencast about the new public beta or the upcoming Red Hat Satellite 6 version. And it's a really big change, because I think they also added puppets in the backend. So it's the configuration management of spacewalk is quite simple. So if you're having a small or medium-sized system landscape, this might be okay for you. But if you are a hoster and you're having hundreds and thousands of systems, the configuration management is not adequate for you. What's using the integration of Puppet, this will change, I think. But I had to give a look at this.
Let's say, in this part, there are still some packages where you don't need to secure.
And satellites is Catello is when you look at it, it's more than with the web front end.
Yeah, so that becomes Catello has become a plugin.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Any further questions?